welcome back to another episode with Fight Night Picks. As always, we're brought to you by SimBody. Vertiball is now SimBody. If you head on over to their website, simbody.com, you're going to get all the great products that you know and love, including the SimBody Vertiroller and the Vertiball that you have seen most likely here in studio. Look at that. Place it, lock it, attach it, Vertiball, all sorts of great stuff over there if you want to roll out those old tired muscles and you don't want to go with that old lacrosse ball. They're also coming out with that very new product that you can see right in front of you. And if I head on over to my cart, look at that. I've already got a Vertiball over there. Little bit of a deal right there. And if you hit the try for 60 days risk-free, use the promo code FNP, you're going to get 20% off your order with that code FNP at simbody.com. You're really, really helping out another local company here in New Brunswick, Canada. Can't wait for it. The new name, SimBody at simbody.com. And as we always say, let's get into it.
A last look at the big card. Be sure to head into the chat and have your say. Let's get into it and join in Fight Night Picks Kicks.
And just like that, we're back. We're in the same room. This is the first time in like 2 weeks. Last night was the first time in 2 weeks that I actually spent like a full night in my own bed at home. So listen, it's a lot of fun. If anybody was wondering why the stream was all over the place, I set it in Eastern time zone because I was in the Eastern time zone. I got delayed 4 hours yesterday. They lost my bag. I got my bag back. Baby got my bat back, just like that movie with Babe Ruth, but I got my microphone back like a half hour ago, so that explains pretty much everything, but I am here for this show, and I'm really looking forward to it, Matt. Again, like, we've had remote shows, we had remote question mark kicks, which is why the stream key was different, so I had to, like, really improvise before this, but all that to say that I am very, very excited for this show, but not just this show in particular, Matt, because this card that we have coming up today, I know everybody's excited about it over in that chat. We've got Austin Lefebvre. Does he know Brian Lefebvre? We've got Con hanging out. We got Leglock, Larry, JR, Octavio is hanging out. I mean, there are a lot of people hitting up that chat already. It's going to come quick, so we're going to have to pay attention to it as best we can, but there are a lot of great fights on this card. I can't wait, and then you parlay that forward to next weekend with 277. I mean, what more could you ask for? UFC 280, I guess.
Exactly, but the card today does have a little bit for everybody. It's got prospects, it's got sort of the more well-known established fighters. It's weird too, because it feels like bigger fighters are getting a bit of a showcase. There are light heavyweight fights that are really important on this card. Of course, we have a heavyweight main event. It just feels like the light heavyweight and heavyweight division have kind of been glossed over. You know, everyone loves bantamweight, it's so hot right now. Featherweight, oh my goodness, is that a great division? But it does feel like the bigger divisions have been sort of at a halt as of late, so it's really nice that we have seen a lot of activity out of these divisions as of late, and I'm super excited for this main event. I'm assuming it's a title eliminator, you would have to think, or at least for Tom Aspinall it is. I saw Curtis Blaydes come out, and it was a pretty sad quote, if I'm being honest. He was like, hey, I realize if I'm going to get a title shot, like, I'm going to have to do quite a bit for the organization to finally get that.
Pretty much he has to fight the winner of Gone and Tuivasa. That's what it seemed like he
said.
And then
probably take on 3 more guys after that because the UFC hates Curtis Blaydes for some weird reason. But it is a great fight. We all know how good Curtis is. He just comes up short of the Francises of the world. And of course, he had that really bad loss to Derek Lewis. But he beats the brakes off pretty much everybody else in the division. And for Tom Aspinall, he is that like superstar talent that we all think he could be. So if he's able to beat Curtis Blaydes today, I don't know how you could deny him the next title shot.
And Matt, I've seen so many internet sleuths out there trying to play the mental psychiatrist saying, oh, I like the way that Jordan Levitt looked in his interviews this week. Oh, I love the confidence out of Paul Craig or Jack Hermanson or Chris Curtis or whoever it might be. We'll see how that one goes because I don't look at that kind of stuff. But I was glad to see that everybody was professional. Everybody came in on weight yesterday.
Very nice.
So you like to see that. Aspinall was down a pound from his last fight. And I think Curtis Blaydes was up a pound from his last fight. So consistency up there near the upper echelon of that heavyweight division. But so many good fights. We've got Chris McDowell over in the chat. Con still lighting it up. PH MMA. Love the early cards. They're European friendly. They definitely are. And some chatter over there about the Bellator card last night. There were so many good fighters. And listen, I think the guy to watch out of that entire card, I know Tofik Messiah, former Rising champ, whatever. Roman Faraldo, if you've ever seen that guy fight, he's the cockiest MFer that's out there. He just throws a left hand and oh boy, he knocks guys dead. So I really did enjoy that Bellator card, Matt. But we're not here to talk about the Bellator. We're to talk about our possible fight of the nights on the Fight in the Night screen. And we didn't have the chance to do this like we're doing it right now, earlier in the week. But Jack Hermance and Chris Curtis is such a fun fight. You look at this week, I mean, Chris Curtis is a winner. Even if he loses this fight, he won the week. Molly McCann's gained a lot of stock. Paddy Pimblett and even Jordan Leavitt to an extent. There's a lot of people that I've seen just talked about a lot this week. Chris Curtis is one of those guys. He finally gets a short notice test against his first ranked opponent, gets to take on Jack Hermance, and in the top 10, this should be a hell of a fight, and I can't wait for it.
I don't think we've made a Kevin Lee joke on this channel for a while, so I guess I'll make like a half Kevin Lee joke. Where does Jack Hermanson fit into all of this, to quote Chael Sonnen? Because he's been in the rankings for the longest time now, and he has fought a lot of the elite fighters in this division. And let's be honest, he normally does come up short of those elite guys. So for Chris Curtis to have this big of an opportunity on short notice, like, it's a huge deal. Darren Till is a guy who's one of the more famous fighters, especially in this region of the world. So the fact that Chris Curtis is able to just sort of not take his spotlight, of course, because it is very different, but this is such a high-profile fight on short notice for Curtis for what, let's be honest, we've called it this, what is a stylistically friendly matchup to him, I would say. It is a great fight, and let's be honest, even though I might not be as high on Jack Hermanson as I used to be, he still puts together fun fights, win, lose, or draw, so this should be an incredible fight.
Yeah, he's continued to be in main events, and he's got a good opportunity in front of him in the co-main this weekend, but of course, you have a look at it, Matt. I mean, our second pick, Pimblett Leavitt, and again, it seems like everybody's kind of taking sides in this one, and again, whether you love to see what Jordan Leavitt had to say, whether you love Paddy Pimblett, where he did the fake out, and then he tried to get the crowd into it, that one was kind of weird, but I really do like this fight, and listen, you can't say that Paddy Pimblett gains too much weight. It goes to his feelings and not to his heart, so watch out there, but I think this is going to be a fun fight while it lasts at 155.
Fernando Tatis Jr. only knows one half of this fight. I will say that. That is weird how Paddy Pimblett, of all the baseball teams to hang out with, became boys with the Padres, but this should be a really fun fight. And I like what you had said earlier on, too. Both guys have grown their platform this week, no matter what the result of the fight is. And I do feel like Jordan Leavitt has done a really good job with the opportunity afforded to him, having such a high-profile fight against a guy like Paddy Pimblett. Because how many fighters would come in, not say anything during fight week, fight, maybe lose, and then just we don't hear about them. They're just it just becomes a fight on their record. That won't be the case with Jordan Leavitt. If he wins, he is a massive underdog who is able to cash out over the hometown hero. And if he loses, I think he still made a good enough account of himself all throughout fight week to where we're still going to be excited for what Jordan Leavitt does next. But this isn't on the fight of the night screen because of the build-up for the fight. This is here because stylistically, these guys, they complement each other so well that I'm very curious to see what Paddy Pimblett's going to do to really be able to get the edge to get this win.
Yeah, I mean, just remember, throw the picks out there. Let us know what you have for the fight of the night. You're not wrong until they hand out the bonus at the end of the night. But Matt, we have a 14 fight card coming up today. It's headlined by Curtis Blaydes and Tom Aspinall. And these morning shows are always fun because that chat is lighting up. And I see Chris Elmore throwing out just an awful question, so that is what it is. And Joel Rogers is responding that, rather politely over there. So a little bit of discourse. Esteban saying, I think Paddy's fight goes to a decision. And yeah, it should be a good one overall. So Matt, when we do look at this card, obviously Blaydes, Aspinall, you had mentioned it, some big fights in the light heavyweight division. I mean, you look at it, Nikita Krylov taking on, oh boy, Alexander Gustafsson, he's on weight. You have Paul Craig taking on Volkan Oezdemir. But if we start this card off, as we always do with Fight Night Picks question mark kicks, and we go from the bottom to the top, we have the old man in this division. He's on a 2-fight losing streak. His name is Claudio Silva, one of my favorite all-time fighters because he had long layoffs. He has big wins on his record. But for Silva, it's going to be an interesting one coming into this fight against Nicolas Dalby because I've seen some people out there say, oh, Nicolas Dalby has good takedown defense and he's a really active striker. Have you watched his fights? Or are you just looking at the numbers? Like, that's not true. Nicolas Dalby doesn't have great takedown defense. And I mean, he throws a lot of volume, but there's not the most power at the end of some of his shots. Like, he's a tricky fighter. And from fight A to fight B, he never really looks like the exact same guy or the guy that we expect every single time out. And for Claudio Silva, his striking is like Jordan Leavitt striking. It's very one-dimensional. It's very spaghetti with no meat sauce. We're just eating the noodles. Like, that is what you get out of Claudio Silva on the feet. But if he gets you to the mat, it's meat sauce with, like, the Bohm hot sauce in it. Like, he really does cook once he does get it down to the mat. So I think it's going to be a really good fight. I think it's going to be a fun fight. But when I look at it for Claudio Silva, I've always been left wanting more, and now coming into this matchup, I'm left with a lot of question marks.
The real question is, what stage of both these guys' careers are they in right now? Because for Nicolas Dalby, he was the hyped up prospect at one point. He took some L's, left the organization at one point. That's something people forget. Like, we normally bring this up with guys like Julian Rosa. He's been cut by the UFC twice, but guess what? He's been signed by the UFC 3 times, so good on him. Nicolas Dalby did have a tenure where he did spend time away from the company, and he had some interesting performances, if we're all being honest, over in Cage Warriors. Some he looked really good in. One is an all-time good fight that ends in a no contest.
I mean, he only did lose the one to Pedersoli, right?
Exactly, but that's the thing. If you do know Carlo Pedersoli, he's a good fighter, but I wouldn't necessarily say he is like a UFC lifetime guy, let's be honest.
He's not a good grappler. He's a good striker.
He is a good striker, very one-dimensional. But the thing is, for Claudio, what version of him are we going to get? Like, I do kind of like he only fights 1 year. It makes him feel like a boogeyman. But at a certain point, you're just not doing yourself any favors. And in this fight against Nicolas Dalby, I think he's going to have to get the takedown in that first, round and a half. I just don't really know what kind of explosiveness Claudio has. As the fight does progress, for him to just go in there and snatch up a submission. Now, could he get a lot of ground control, get on top of Dalby in round 2, round 3? Yes, of course. I just think in terms of explosiveness to actually get the stoppage, get the finish, I do think he's going to have to do it fairly early in this fight, whereas the later this fight goes, I do like the steady output of Nicolas Dalby. I agree with you. His volume's not crazy, but it's not like it falls off a cliff as the fight progresses. He will fight at a very similar manner from the start of the fight to the end of it, so I ever so slightly like Nicolas Dalby, but I don't really know what version of either guy we're going to get, so I would not put any money on this.
And Adam's saying Silva lives in London for years and years now. He was a long-time London shoot fighter guy, which was kind of odd. I guess it kind of complements his grappling. You want to work on your striking. London shoot fighters had a lot of great guys. MVP's the first fighter that I think
it's just where did the evolution go, you know?
That's
we
kind of
really
it.
Saw it.
Sean McMahon hitting up the super chat over there, and I do see some comments about both of these guys, and maybe you want to go with the underdog. Pop popcorn's what I said at the start of the week, and I still feel the same way because when we made the video at the time, Dalby was a minus 270 favorite, and Silva was at a plus 216. If we have a look at it right now, minus 223 for Nicolas Dalby, plus 184 for Claudio Silva. And if you have a look at Fight Night Picks for the total votes, on our Instagram story, 74% going with Dalby. I think Dalby has, again, the more well-rounded skill set. Now, I'm not saying that he's a good grappler. I don't really like his takedown defense. That's my big issue with this fight. He's the longer, rangier striker. He does kind of tend to strike all the way in, all the way out. So that's what makes him tricky when he takes on guys that actually have quite a bit of power. But when I look at Dalby, if he can keep the separation, I think he can win. Claudio Silva coming out of American Top Team for this camp. He's got a good opportunity to hit as an underdog. And yeah, some of these prelim fights, you do see the underdogs hit. But for me, I do like Dalby, but this is a tricky fight.
In a fight where you don't know what the future career path is for either fighter, don't bet any money on it. Like, for Claudio and for Nicolas Dalby, it's if we win this, we get another one. If we don't, maybe not. And anytime there's a fight like that, you never really know what either guy's motivation's going to be, so I always hazard away from these.
Yeah, I mean, Silva looked like dust against James Krause, and he didn't look very good against Mr. Court McGee, the Crusher. You love a Crusher fight, Matt. Mandy Boom taking on Leonardo in the next fight. I'll grab something to drink. But when I do look at this fight, like I said at the start of the week, I project a ceiling for either one of these women. Victoria Leonardo could win one, lose one, win one, lose one. But I could pretty much say the same thing for Mandy Boom. And I don't see them cracking the rankings in the flyweight division, which is something to be said, I think. And I know that sounds very harsh, but this is another one of those fights, man. You want to stay away from it. It's such a weird matchup because for Mandy Boom, she's billed as a striker, but she's more of a teep kicker. That's not good.
No.
Keep my opponent away from me. Keep my hands low.
I can't let you get close, Vanderlei.
Eat a ton of strikes and then not really fire back with a lot of purpose. And for Victoria Leonardo, it very much is 1-2. 1-2. Got to keep that right hand high. 1-2. Got to defend this takedown. 1-2. And with her offensive takedowns, Leonardo is pretty good. I had Boom at the start of the week because she does tend to have a more well-rounded skill set. And I think as far as submission abilities out of either of these two, I like Boom. But Mandy Boom had her most success when she trained at SBG, and she hasn't trained there for a very long time. She looked flat in her UFC debut. I guess she looked good at the start of the first round against Ariane Lipski, and then she got dropped in the second round, dropped in the third round, and almost dropped in the first round. So Boom didn't look very good in that one. Obviously, Lipski and Leonardo, very different strikers, but this is a very, very tough one. And if you like the underdog in this matchup, I won't fault you whatsoever.
This fight reminds me of how fired up people were getting on Twitter about Sharif O'Neal getting a dunk in the Summer League. It's like, okay, that's great. We're never going to see it in the NBA, unfortunately. But again, I agree with you. Mandy Bohm has slightly better long-range attacks. I think if this fight hits the mat, she's at least the more active grappler, and that's what I like. I would rather a fighter lose on their back trying to set something up than just doing that classic, like, pin down and hope that the ref saves them. And for those reasons, I do ever so slightly favor Mandy Bohm, but like you said, it is really hard to see a future for either one of these fighters in this division, and that's awful to say in a division that only has about 20 fighters, but we're just being honest. Like, the top 12, I would say, of the flyweight division is very good, and then the rest of it is a lot of, like, strawweights who are moving up, or bantamweights who have lost quite a few and they're moving down. It is a weird mix after you do get into the, like, top tier of the rankings, so ever so slightly favoring Mandy Bohm in this one, but you could tell me anything and I'd probably believe you.
Khan is saying Leonardo Elward. Really? Like, okay, let's have a look at the odds in this one. We'll get a bit of a sense. They are very close. They were at the start of the week. Minus 116 for Mandy Bohm, and for Victoria Leonardo, minus 104. She opened the week when we made the video at about a plus 120. So the money's come in on Victoria Leonardo. She has a good opportunity. Obviously, broke her arm, re-broke that arm, x-ray doctor last time out. But, she's taken on a very tough level of competition if you look at it. Nobody knew what Melissa Gatto was going to look like. She looked like a banshee out there in her UFC debut. So a tough fight in those two for Leonardo. She gets an opportunity to right the ship against Mandy Bohm. This really, really is a tough one. So we'll move forward to the next one, Matt. Kyle Nelson. Now, I'm going to find the quotable. Did you see the one that he had this week?
I did not.
About Jai Herbert. We're going to have a look at it. So I will hand this off because for Jai Herbert, it's been like drinking flat pop in his UFC run. Like, there's been moments where you go, hey, I taste a little bit of a fizz. Oh, wait, it's still flat pop. Like, for Herbert, yes, he had that great moment against Ilia Topuria, but ultimately got knocked out cold in the second round. So it really is tough to digest when you do look at everything. For Kyle Nelson, he's been out for almost 2 years. He's 1-3 in the UFC. His level of competition has been great. And then his one win against Polo Reyes was on a string of Polo Reyes being on a poster. So it's really tough to gauge what you're going to get out of Nelson. Obviously looks good on the scales. Obviously has great strength of training camp with Niagara Top Team here in Canada. And he also cross-trains out of Muskoka. But when you do look at this fight, Matt, Jai Herbert, my goodness. Like, unless Kyle Nelson clinches him up, rinse and repeat with the takedowns, I see Herbert winning this fight.
Like, there's some grapplers out there who are really good, but they're not, like, Charles Oliveira level. And even Charles Oliveira has some submission losses. Like, if you're a grapple-heavy fighter, there's some people who, even though they are good on the ground, they will get submission losses every now and then. Jai Herbert's like that with a striker, though. He is a good striker, but the problem is, he's not the most durable guy on the feet. And when you do have these crazy, I almost said boxing matches, because that is what he likes to get into. He does like to get into that boxing range, but when you do these classic kind of striking fights that he does, like, your durability is going to get chipped away. It's the old Doris Burke. You're going to pound the rock, because at a certain point, Jai Herbert, like, I love his striking. I really do think it's good. If you just look at his striking in a vacuum, he's got long range strikes. He's very fast on his feet. He puts together combinations. Those are three very good things to have. But the issue is, when you fire big, you do tend to miss big, and that has been the problem with Jai Herbert. He likes to throw these long-range punching combinations, and the issue is, if he doesn't pull his hands back right away or move his feet immediately, he's going to get tagged by a really big counter shot on the other end. Now, Kyle Nelson's not really the type of guy who will take advantage of that, and maybe Kyle Nelson is able to hit Jai Herbert right in the sweet spot and put him down, but I do agree with you. I think if Nelson's going to have success in this matchup, he's going to have to just sort of put out the fire of Jai Herbert, which is much easier said than done, but I do like Herbert because the way I look at this fight is he's either going to go out there and win the fight or he's going to lose the fight for himself. I would much rather that than someone who's just going to go in there and try to implement their, I guess, well-rounded attack. I think there is a world where Nelson is able to out-grapple his way for a win, but I do think that the striking of Jai Herbert has been undersold based on some of his previous opponents, and I do think he'll look a lot better in this matchup.
Yeah, Matt Sales, a loss that Kyle Nelson has, and Sales decent on the ground, better on the feet, so that one is a questionable loss at 145, but this is a quote from Kyle Nelson this week, and I found it on at Mike's MMA Picks. He's a good friend of the show. I think my striking, especially technically, is a little bit better than Topuria, and then I still carry that power. I've been carrying a lot of power for a long time, and now that I'm at 155 pounds, I think it is going to show through even more. Kyle Nelson. You donkey. I mean, good that you have self-belief, but you're not going to win this fight. Unless he wrestles, which apparently he doesn't plan to do. So, yeah, I have Jai Herbert in this fight. Jai is at a minus 284, and if you look at it for Kyle Nelson, plus 231. If we have a look at the Fight Night Picks Instagram page, you have a look at the total votes on this fight. 84% going with Jai Herbert, 16% with Kyle Nelson. If you have Nelson, you let us know over in that comment section, but I don't really see much with him. I see Fearless Red 25 saying let's go, and Column Money hit us up in the super chat earlier. So if I didn't mention that, I do appreciate that from Column Money. But again, on this fight, Matt, for Kyle Nelson to win, yeah, he had that win against Polo Reyes, who was coming off a knockout loss 2 months before against Drew Dober. And Polo, brain got rattled.
It did.
It got rattled. So I do look at this fight as, Jai Herbert has those big time, opportunities in his striking. Again, when he does pull back, there is an opportunity for Nelson, but Nelson's not some giant thunderous puncher. Again, Herbert is susceptible to the knockout, but I do have Herbert in this one, Matt. So it sucks we can't pick the Canadian in this one. Maybe we can pick somebody from the Commonwealth in our next fight. We have Charles Johnson take on Muhammad Mokaev. I got one thing to say about this throughout Fight Week that I hate. Mokaev saying that his time in the sport of MMA is limited based on,
Justin Gaethje said that the second he entered the UFC.
Based on religion, I don't necessarily love that. So we'll see how it plays out for Muhammad Mokaev throughout his career, and we'll see how long it lasts. But a lot of people saying, Charles Johnson, great strength of schedule. He's fought the better fighters, this and that. Somebody beat me up over the fact that I said that Abdul Hussein was a good fighter. Go watch the guy's fights. I don't know what to tell you. He's a European champion when he was an amateur with IMMAF. But when I look at this fight, Matt, obviously Charles Johnson has lost some decisions to some better fighters. Brandon Royval being the last decision loss that he has. Look at the guys that he's beat. Some are all right. Look at the fights that he's had. I mean, again, I went back and did a ton of tape study for this fight.
We didn't believe you until you said a ton a second time.
And when I watched Charles Johnson fight, I like the guy. I think he's got great cardio. I think he's got decent offensive wrestling, poor defensive wrestling. There's a lot of Charles Johnson getting taken down in open space. He's got his hands really high. I mean, that picture does it justice. But he does keep his hands high. He keeps a high tie stance. But when he's high, he's trying to mix his martial arts. Mokaev with the takedown. I see Mokaev taking this one. I see Waleed saying Charles Johnson will be toast. UFC expert analysis with the big time super chat. How serious is Mason Jones' recent knee injury that landed on a 6-month medical suspension? What was the exact injury? I'm not 100% sure, UFC expert analysis, because we made the video a day after the fight was made. And
also, you can get medically suspended for very minor things, and as long as the doctor clears you, the actual suspension doesn't mean anything. It's just a recommendation. Well, it's not a recommendation. You're not allowed to fight within that time, but what you can do is go to your doctor, you just get the injury cleared, and let's say you were suspended for, 9 months, they can clear you in 2.
The only problem, though, Matt, that I do, like Joe's saying, Johnson trains with Jordan Burroughs. Johnson isn't Jordan Burroughs. He also went to Tiger Muay Thai to work on his striking, and all he does is kick. He doesn't throw his hands. So I have a hard time in this one going with Charles Johnson. I like the fighter. I think he's going to have some success in the UFC. We were already talking at the start of the week, some potential matchups you could give him, like a Tim Elliott or Zhalgas Zhumagulov, like some of those guys in the fringes, maybe Malcolm Gordon, but not Muhammad Mokaev. If Mokaev loses this fight, I'd be very surprised.
And that's the thing. I got to be honest. I think Mokaev would probably beat Tim Elliott. He'd probably give Zhalgas a really tough fight. He is of that ilk, I do believe, and it'll be very curious to see who they match him up with next, because right now in this division, there's two golden geese, if you will. You have Jeff Molina on his way up. He just had a couple really crazy fights, but he's one of these new, younger prospects in this division, and you've got Mokaev, too. I don't think they'll ever fight each other unless they are in the top 5, but still, these are the two future fighters of this division, and I do think Mokaev is going to have another one-sided win on his hands.
Yeah. I mean, again, for me, I have a hard time going with Charles Johnson. Like I mentioned, he had the Tiger Muay Thai scholarship for a year in 2019, but who's the fighter that I mentioned at the start of the week?
Mallory Martin.
Mallory Martin had one in 2016. So again, we have a look at the votes for this one at Fight Night Picks. 89% going with Mokaev.
Cole Hughes, Zhalgas is tough, though. The second you think he's going to lose a fight, he'll look better than you thought.
He's scrappy. I hope they keep him around for the rest of the time. Zhalgas Zhumagulov fighting into his 50s. Matt, Makwan Amirkhani's taking on Jonathan Pearce this weekend, and we've got just over 400 tuning in, only 60 likes. Takes 2 seconds. The super chat's been going nuts, but when we do look at this fight, Matt, I think this is going to be a fun one. I mean, you have a guy in Makwan Amirkhani that can cinch up a neck like it's nothing. You have Jonathan Pearce that has boxing combinations, but it's not the best. You'd think a guy like Pearce is getting better with his striking at fight ready. We've seen some advancements even since he's come into the UFC, but known for his takedowns. Makwan, a guy to really ride things out and get some submissions. So I've seen so many people this week taking Makwan Amirkhani to win this fight. And I have this one as a bit of a 50-50. And if you do look at this one at the start of the week and you consider both of these guys, Amirkhani was an underdog. So maybe a really good opportunity for an underdog pick here.
It could be. I have a really hard time with this fight, though, because for Makwan Amirkhani, I still don't think he's, like, all that in a bag of chips, if we're being completely honest. The losing streak he was on was a very, very bad one. I know he was able to rebound very fast his last time out. He got the submission win in under a minute, I believe. But still, that's not enough for me to completely change all the negatives I've seen in your fight game. And I know we're going to talk about this more next weekend when it comes down to Juliana Pena and Amanda Nunes. But when I've seen you look for a way out in a tough fight, it's very, very difficult for me to get that image out of my brain. And I've seen Makwan Amirkhani do that before. Now, with JSP, it's not like he's a Justin Gaethje or a Khabib type who's really going to force you and try to break you that way. But I just don't like Makwan Amirkhani and his wrestling style of how it's, hey, if I don't get the takedown, I'm just going to shoot 17 more of them and hope that I do eventually get one. And he does tire himself out going for these high-volume takedowns. So if he is able to get one early, maybe he can sap the energy of JSP and have a lot more success as this fight goes on. But I think JSP is the more well-rounded fighter between these two. And I really do think that if he's able to get his boxing combinations going on the feet, there's not much of an answer for Makwan Amirkhani that can really get rid of that other than his wrestling.
Well, I mean, over in the comment section, Franklin Rose saying Amirkhani and Pearce, another Sean Shelby special, tough to figure out. It really is. And I mean, if you do like Amirkhani, like the Fight Night Picks fans do on Instagram, 55% of them have Amirkhani to get the win, and he's still an underdog right now. So if you do look at the odds, when we made the video, he's a plus 180 or thereabouts. He's a plus 150. So the money's come in on Amirkhani throughout the week. JSP at a minus 177, and Octavio is saying another popcorn fight. Underdog or pass for me, guys. I have JSP. If these guys strike, Pearce is the more active striker. I mean, Makwan Amirkhani is a historically low strikes per minute type of fighter. 1.36 strikes per minute. The UFC average is 3.38. 1.36 significant strikes per minute. A whole minute goes by and he goes like this, and once every, not even 30 seconds, 23 and a bit seconds, he throws another one. Like, he doesn't do a whole hell of a lot when it comes to striking. Now, he does grapple a lot, but it remains to be seen. I hated the way JSP looked when he took the short notice replacement against Christian Rodriguez in the third round of that fight. So that's why I don't love JSP, but I see Joe saying I don't trust Makwan's cardio. I don't trust either guy's cardio. I do have JSP based on the well-roundedness, but if you saw Makwan Amirkhani's last fight against Mike Grundy, a very good wrestler, he was able to get it done very, very quickly, so we'll see how it goes. But again, I have Pearce, you have Pearce?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Oh, yeah.
Well, it's just, I hate people whose only way of having any success in fights also is their biggest weakness. Like, his wrestling's good, but if you get that tired because of your wrestling, is your wrestling really that big of an asset to you?
We'll see how it plays out, Matt. We do have a fun fight in our next one. Boston Strong, Charles Rosa. He's going to be taking on Nathaniel Wood. And this is one of those fights where Wood's coming up. He spent his whole career at 135 pounds. His last fight was a catchweight of 140 against Casey Kenny almost 2 years ago. Like, that's wild. It was a fight of the night. It was a great fight. It was close. Ultimately, Kenny won 2 of the rounds, but you could have made an argument either way. I'd be here to listen. It was a lot of fun to go back and watch. And we've seen from Nathaniel Wood in his last 2 fights, up in that striking volume big time. Now, he is one of those jack of all trades. He can kind of get it done in a lot of different ways. Charles Rosa has been traditionally known that way. He was always a win one, lose one, Random Marcos type of fighter. Gets beat by better wrestlers than he. Gets beat by better grapplers than he. If he can exploit that weakness against an opponent, he wins. And then when it comes to his striking, it's a weird karate stance that can also be exploited by a boxer. So, Matt, I just set that up for one of these guys to win.
Wow.
So I don't normally do that.
So you like Nathaniel Wood, you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, again, Kevin's saying another fighter moving up in weight. Nathaniel Wood said he was supposed to take a fight here in the spring. It fell out against Vince Morales. He said he was making the move up to featherweight, so he's had a few months, like a few months, like 4 or 5 months to get his body ready for 145. I thought he looked fine on the scale, but yeah, I look at this fight, Matt. I have Nathaniel Wood, and I don't have a whole lot more to add.
It's just a really difficult fight for Charles Rosa, and I agree with you on every point, so I guess I'll just add a couple more of my own. Charles Rosa is a good grappler if he gets on top of his opponent, but the problem is, and this is weird, but I'll personalize it, I was okay at sports growing up, but I'm not very strong. I'm a tall, thin person. At a certain point, strength really does matter. I don't think Charles Rosa is a strong grappler. I think his skills are strong, but I don't think physically he is the most overpowering guy, and I do think that works against him. Like, look at the Bryce Mitchell fight. Bryce Mitchell is getting him beaten every single position, and I know what you're going to say, oh, well, that's Bryce Mitchell. If you're a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt like Charles Rosa is, that's one of the first things we bring up when we talk about you. You can't get out-grappled for every second of a 15-minute fight, and he not only got out-grappled, there was 2 10-8 rounds, almost 3. Like, that's how one-sided that matchup was. So at this point...
With no submissions.
Exactly.
That never happens.
So at this point, I am a little bit worried about Charles Rosa getting this fight to even where he wants it to go. Like, if he gets Nathaniel Wood to the mat, Nathaniel Wood could probably pop right back up. Like, I'm not that concerned about him on the ground with a guy like Charles Rosa. So I think it'll be interesting on the feet with the movement of Rosa, but eventually Nathaniel Wood's going to get to him and start putting up big numbers on the feet.
I mean, Keegan likes Charles Rosa quite a bit. If we do have a look at Fight Night picks, Charles Rosa 5-7 in the UFC. He fought Dennis Seaver. Oh, that's like, okay, no active NBA player has ever played the Sacramento Kings in the playoffs. That's one of those stats. Like, hey, he's been around so long he fought Dennis Seaver. Matt, 87% of the Fight Night Picks fans have Nathaniel Wood to get the win. I think when it comes to the boxing combinations, if Wood can keep this one at range, it's his fight to lose. And for Charles Rosa, he was one of those guys that got the extra contract coming in his last fight on somewhat a short notice off a loss, and it's kind of like Chase Sherman. Like, Bappa, what are we doing here? But Chase Sherman did look good in his last fight against Jared Vanderas. So maybe you will have a win from Charles Rosa. Matt, Damir Hadzovic is taking on Marc Diakiese. And there's a lot of fighters representing the UK. Obviously for Marc Diakiese, he does rep Congo as well as England. And if you do look at Diakiese, he's a guy that always the striking was so flashy. Up through Bama, into the UFC, Teemu Packalén. See you later. Bye-bye. And you look at it since that fight, I mean, he's out-wrestled a collegiate wrestler in Lando Venata. And a lot of people go, Craig, did he really? Yeah, go watch the fight. He did. He completely out-wrestled his opponent his last time out. And yeah, nobody wants to see Slava Borshev on the mat. They want to see the guy doing crazy stuff on the feet and getting knocked down and then back into his fights. But for Diakiese, it was a great opportunity to get back in the win column. Remind fans of, you know, the bone crusher. Even though he wasn't really crushing bones, he was just lightly kind of like...
It wasn't a good fight for how hyped I was for it.
No. But when it does come down to this one, Damir Hadzovic has not the best, but not the worst takedown defense. But when it does come down to it, he's a boxer to the nth degree. I know in his last fight, Hadzovic, when he was taking on Yancy Medeiros, started the fight off by throwing a leg kick, which is not his style. But it worked great for him. And in that fight, but it's Yancy Medeiros.
Damir Hadzovic, was that the handoff? Damir moves like Dennis Smith Jr. in that workout video. I don't know if you guys have seen, but Dennis Smith Jr. is trying to come back. Shout out to J. Cole. Good lyric. Anyways. But he holds the ball. You know when you hold a medicine ball, you'll like put your hand like this, right? Like hold it like that. You don't just hold it. He holds a basketball like this now, and that's how I think of Damir Hadzovic when he strikes. He's good at it, but there is a weird stiffness to the way that he moves on the feet, which has always puzzled me. Because normally, okay, think of Israel Adesanya, think of Anderson Silva, these all-time great strikers. They move like a real professional athlete. They have this fluidity to them on the feet. Damir isn't really cut from that cloth, and that's what always has confused me throughout his tenure. But this should be a fun fight if it is able to stay on the feet. I agree with you. I think we are going to see a lot more of the wrestling side of Marc Diakiese, just because if you know Damir has that as a weakness, especially his wrestling defense and his defensive grappling, you might as well go to that well once or twice. So I do like Marc Diakiese in this matchup, but I think it could be a really fun fight for the first round at least.
Matt Handsome R hitting up the big super chat saying, great show, guys. That's very much appreciated. Leon Nesterog saying, could you guys rank these guys as the second best in their division? Covington, Whitaker, Jan, Holloway.
I would say, okay, are we ranking them who's more likely to get the title?
No, I'd say just who's the second best in every division. So welterweight, yeah, I'd say Covington.
Well, no, he's right. He wants us to rank them, though. Like, who are the best out of those?
Oh, rank these guys as the second best in their division? No, I think we're trying to answer the question. Go ahead.
I agree. Well, no one disagrees that Covington, Whitaker, Jan, and Holloway are the second best, though. Nobody in the world does. That's what I mean. I would say Whitaker's the most likely to get a title back, because I can see Adesanya losing to a wrestler, and then maybe Whitaker's able to jump in. Covington's tough, because him and Usman do the exact same thing. It's just Usman has, like, a little bit more power on everything. Jan's only lost to the champion one time, which is something he has going for him, whereas everyone else has lost to the champion twice. Holloway might be the most technical of them all, but the problem is he's lost the champion 3 times. He's going to move divisions, so that's a tough one.
I mean, the trouble for poor Max Holloway is great argument early on. First fight, relatively close. Volkanovski won. Second fight, Holloway had even more of an argument than the third fight. He didn't really have much of an argument in that one. So if I'm going, with you, I'd say Whittaker's probably the closest one to getting a title shot. If Petr Yan beats Sean O'Malley, that's the big name to then jump yourself back into the Sterling races. And I think there's a lot of different fights to be made out there. So, I mean, rank them pound for pound 1 to 4. I'd say Whittaker, Yan, Covington, Holloway.
Whittaker, Yan. I put Holloway above Yan, but other than that, yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. So really do answer those ones over in the comment section. In this fight, though, again, I think even the threat of the body kick opens up against a guy like Damir Hadzovic, who does have more of like a really high stance, and Marc Diakiese, great with his kick. So good opportunity for both guys, both of us going with Diakiese. And Matt, this is the fight. This is a feature prelim on a week's notice at 155 pounds. Both guys made the weight. And as I said about Ludwig Klein, he had that big time, I'm going to Sanford, now Killcliff MMA. And he went 0-2 there, fighting in his natural weight class of featherweight. But when he fought at home, and he took both of his fights on short notice out of his own gym of Spartacus at 155 and 150, he won both those fights in impressive fashion. So I look at Ludwig Klein taking this fight on short notice. He was supposed to fight next week at UFC 277 against Ignacio Bahamondes at 145 pounds. Bahamondes couldn't make it happen, or I guess that would have been at 155, so that's my mistake. That would have been at 155. So now he gets a short notice opponent replacement, Mason Jones. If Mason Jones' knee is fine, Mason Jones, I think, will win this fight. The trouble I have with Jones is sometimes he will struggle at open space against a guy who is kick heavy and a guy like Ludwig Klein. But Mason Jones has great boxing, great pressure, and the guy effing wrestles, and he has a big size advantage over most at 155 pounds. So for those reasons, I like Mason Jones. Justin Frank setting up the super chat. Joe is saying, will Klein melt from the pressure of Jones? I anticipate. First Loss saying Mason Jones future contender. Man, what if we lived in a bizarro world where Mike Davis fought every 4 months?
I'd be a lot happier in general, I'd say, because I love watching Mike Davis fight. This is weird, because I agree. Like, everything says Mason Jones should win this fight. But it's on short notice. He didn't have to fly, not across a state, not across a province, not across the country. He had to fly from the west coast of America to the east coast of Europe.
Like, that's it. He is out of Wales, and he always trained at Wales. But in his last, 4 or 5 camps, he spent at Team Alpha Male in California. And that's where he was coming from to make it on a week's notice.
And this thing, like, Jones, I genuinely think could get into the rankings at lightweight. Like, I think he is destined for that at some point in his future. I don't think he's going to win all those fights in the rankings, but I do think that at this division, his combination of durability, boxing, wrestling, like, he is the real deal. Ludwig Klein, I agree, he's good in open space, but he doesn't react to pressure all that well, and I do think that if Mason Jones can just get his back up against the cage, not that I'm going to predict a finish by any means, but like, I could see him landing a very big combination on Klein with his back up against the cage, really go to the body quite a bit, so I do like Mason Jones in this fight.
Yeah, like, I love Ludwig Klein for how creative he can be with his striking. Everybody remembers him for the Shane Young knockout, but go back and watch his fights before the UFC, and that was like every fight. He's setting everything up, and then he lands the left head kick. It's a great move. You like a guy like Charles Jourdain, you want to see a guy in open space. Ludwig Klein is that kind of guy. But when he gets pressured, he gets kind of herky-jerky with his boxing, and the wheels start to fall off a little bit. And he saw that against Mike Trizano. That was how Trizano was able to win. When you have a guy like Mason Jones who can box like that and then scoop in the threat of the takedown, that's just where I see him winning. But again, I hear the arguments from everybody in the chat talking about Ludwig Klein. Klein has a good opportunity here, guys. Like, I'm not totally writing him off in this fight, I should say.
We are going to have to disagree on that. I do not think he has a great opportunity, if we are just being honest. Like, if you stack these guys' skills up against each other, Mason Jones has cast a shadow that's taller than Ludwig Klein's. Like, that's how much more skilled Mason Jones is. He has the wrestling in his back pocket, and he's the much bigger guy. Like, if you're banking on Ludwig Klein just landing like a one-punch knockout, David Onam is pretty good at striking on the feet, and he was able to land some clean shots, and they didn't have much of an effect on Jones. So, if David Onama can't do it, I have a hard time thinking Ludwig Klein can.
Jones open to minus 325, minus 402 right now. So again, like, I haven't really mentioned the odds yet through these fights. Klein at a plus 312. There's a lot of big favorites on this one. There's a lot of big favorites.
I have a fight that I would like you to hear about. Do you do him versus Jalen Turner next, or is it too soon?
Malone Hart hit up a giant super chat. I'll answer that, saying, sorry I got here late, but here's my homage to the MMA knowledge demigods. But well, listen, I really is appreciate him, Malone Hart. Thank you so much for that super chat. MVP of the show, you get knucks through the screen, so thank you for that. That means a lot. I mean, listen.
Wait, you didn't know we were brothers? You watch every every show.
Yeah, you're here every show. You're hitting up the super chat. That's kind of
wild. Do
wild.
we not look that alike?
I don't know. I thought we did.
Everybody
Normally says we do. I was stuck in Toronto for an extra 4 hours yesterday, so it's 5.5 hours total. And a half hour before the show, I got our microphone because my bag showed up. So, yeah, that means a lot. It's been a heck of a day. It was the dog's breakfast of a 24 hours, and we're here and we're having fun. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's been a good time.
Yeah, I think a Jalen Turner fight makes sense if he does win this one. I think you're getting right up there. I know, obviously, Jalen Turner rankings adjacent. Obviously, Damir Ismagulov's right there. I think Ismagulov wins that fight. But when I do look at it, maybe, again, another guy that we've seen recently.
Ismagulov's a good call.
Guram Kutataladze, somebody like that. But we are talking about fighters that are right up there, and Mason Jones has a good opportunity if he wins. So, Matt, we'll move on to the next one. The Paul Craig fan club, please stand up because they're here this week. They've been here all week. I've seen them on Twitter. I've seen them everywhere.
I'm doing this whole part. No.
Malone Hart, sorry, like Forrest Gump once said, I'm not a smart man. Well, the follow-up super chat is appreciated as well. But when I do look at this fight, Matt, like everybody's on Paul Craig. Obviously, he's a hair stand now, and Volkan Oezdemir is not. But you do like to see that out of Paul Craig, the flowing locks. I mentioned the Kevin Love jersey that he did wear in the build-up to training for this fight, which is scary. But when I do look at this one, Matt, Paul Craig with his submission ability, I mean, he can submit the best at 205 pounds. Imagine if he grappled with John Jones. Like prime John Jones, Paul Craig. I'd love to see that.
He probably gets ground and pounded into oblivion.
Just the wrestling. Just like when Jack Hermanson wrestled with Hamzat Chimaev. Like, I'd like to see that Paul Craig, John Jones. But when I do look at this one, Matt, for Paul Craig, I see a lot of people. Paul Craig by submission. First round submission, this and that. Brandon Sanders saying Odd Craig is a dog in this one. And Franklin is saying Craig has been on a burner. Surprisingly, based on the talent competition overall. Paul Craig basically said this week, like, hey, I know what my skills are. I know it's weird, but I'm just going to keep rolling with that. That's what makes this fun. Like, I like to see a specialist going up through the ranks like this, like a Damian Maia.
And we don't normally see grapplers in the light heavyweight and heavyweight division because on the bottom, it's really hard when you have someone who's well over 200 pounds on top of you. You're trying to sweep them, you're trying to submit them. It's very, very difficult to do. But the fact that Paul Craig is sort of a throwback fighter has been really nice to see. But I feel like I have to, I don't know. Have you heard the good word of Paul Craig? You've never picked Paul Craig in any fight, I don't think. And nothing against you or anything. It's just, why haven't you jumped on the boat? That's all. Like, what is the only thing holding you back, I guess?
I appreciate that you give me the chance to defend myself. Because I'm too biased on what happened at the start of his UFC career and then some of the wins. Like, at the start of his UFC career, it was lose, win, lose. And then he started on this win streak. And obviously against Jamal Hill, I figured, well, Jamal Hill's going to beat him. And then Jamal Hill played touch butt in the park and talked about how good his grappling was and got stuck and down in the deep. And when you do look at his last fight, Nikita Krylov had him dead to rights. And then Paul Craig, just like a comic book superhero off his back, just like woke right up out of a deep sleep and decided, okay, I'm going to submit him in this opportunity. For me, when I do look at this one, and I can reason with the Volkan Oezdemir pick, Oezdemir gets beat with the striking before he gets finished. And we saw that in the Anthony Smith fight. He got brutalized on the feet. Then he ultimately succumbed to getting taken down and finished. And when I look at Oezdemir, traditionally he's had very, very good takedown defense. It's 80%. It's 6 of 30. 2 of those are against Daniel Cormier. Anthony Smith was able to do it. Ankalaev did briefly, but it didn't account for a whole heck of a lot. So when I look at this fight, again, for Oezdemir, he did get hit with a big shot on the feet his last fight against Ankalaev in the first round. And then he rallied to land a ton of strikes in the second round and look great. And then in the third round, both guys just kind of... It was basically both guys were on cruise control. I like Oezdemir with the strike in a matchup against Paul Craig. It's just, if you drop Paul Craig, don't go down there.
And this is the thing. I know we disagree on Ankalaev and sort of where he fits in this whole division.
Yep.
I don't think he is of that, top tier in the division whatsoever. I really do think he would struggle against the other top tier guy. He got dropped by the ghost of Thiago Santos with no knees. And there's a good argument Thiago Santos, not beat him in that fight, but, he did really well in that 5-round fight. I'm just not all that sold on Ankalaev, and I thought Ankalaev did quite well against Oezdemir. My issue is, Oezdemir hasn't looked like no time since the Ilir Latifi fight. And that was a very, very long time ago. And at a certain point, I would rather trust the consistency of performances and finishes that I've seen from Paul Craig than what could be in Volkan Oezdemir. Because for Oezdemir, I do really like his striking. I like him on the feet. I like the fact that he can put together nice boxing combinations. The only thing I dislike about his striking is he makes his arms shorter than they have to be. When he throws hooks, he comes down with them instead of going across with them. And I do think that collapses distance for him a little bit too much, which makes him then get into some wrestling engagements. So I think this is a really fun fight because they are so different stylistically, but I still do have Paul Craig.
Oezdemir open a -200 favorite, -144
Line is
right
all
now.
over.
Paul Craig at a +120. When we made the video, he was a +140. So lines come down on Paul Craig. When you do look at Craig, I mean, yeah, it's submission or not. Like,
Craig.
you have a look. I mean, 7 of his 8 UFC wins are by submission, and all 7 of those are performance bonuses. And when you do look at Volkan Oezdemir, he's been training at All Stars, working out with Gustafsson, with Chimaev, so on and so forth, with the wrestlers. But again, I just like the takedown defense. I think he's a much better striker than Paul Craig. But like I said at the start of the week, I went back and watched him fight Kelly Knudsen, who was a traditional wrestler, took him down with body locks and so on and so forth. So I have Oezdemir, you have Paul Craig, and this is one where, like, you can't see a method of victory for Oezdemir, and I can't see one for Paul Craig, which is...
No. The complete opposite. I see, like, 10 paths to victory for both guys.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fair. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
So wait, you don't think Paul Craig has a chance?
Not at all.
The disrespect.
Yeah, this... Normally...
To never picking him to say he can't beat a guy and has no chance to beat a guy who hasn't won a fight in 3 years is kind of wild.
Normally, I'm pretty nice about these things, but not this time. Matt, we have Meatball and Molly McCann taking on Hannah Goldy. I think there's a good opportunity for both these fighters to win, though. Obviously, this is you're 5 years old, your dad's the coach, here's the ball, here's the tee, hit the ball off the tee, and run around for an inside-the-park home run, like Tapia did last night. Inside the park grand slam against the Red Sox. Boom. But when
you wear both teams' merch, are you happy?
This feels like Molly McCann should win this fight 10 times out of 10, but I also used the L word for a Molly McCann fight against Tyler Santos, and I've never quite felt right about a Molly McCann fight since. So when I do look at this one, if Goldy can stay on the outside and land some decent shots, I think size for size, both these fighters are relatively close. I know Hannah Goldy's actually had more flyweight fights than strawweight fights, even though in my mind's eye she's a strawweight. She's billed as a strawweight. And for Molly McCann... boxing combinations, wrestling, she overexpends herself in the first round of her fight. She almost finished Luana Carolina, looked bad in the second round, was on her way to losing the third round until she landed the spinning elbow, so take that for what it's worth. Monaco Remodeling, hitting up the super chat with the ATL. Check in, boys. What time is it where you guys are at? We're an hour ahead of you. You're on the Eastern time zone, we're on Atlantic. And if you went a half hour ahead, you'd be in Newfoundland.
It's hot here, though, so I can only imagine how warm it is in Atlanta right now.
Yeah, the ATL is probably disgusting. So again, I do have McCann, but Khan is saying, let's not forget she choked out by Jillian Robertson. If you want to play MMA math, Hannah Goldy beat Jillian Robertson beat Molly McCann, Hannah Goldy should win. Franklin hits up the super chat. That's appreciated from you, Franklin. But yeah, I mean, for me, I have Molly McCann in this one, based on what I've seen. Obviously, for Goldy, her last win's a submission win, so that's fun. It was against 4-4 Emily Whitmire.
Exactly. And this is my big weird problem with this fight. It's not even a problem. It's just at a certain point, Molly McCann is going to have to fight like a good fighter, right?
Again.
But it's been a while. Like, this is my problem with Molly McCann. She's talked about like she's a top 10 ranked fighter in this division and like she's a fight or two away from getting a title shot. But she's fought the same level of competition ever since she entered the UFC. Like, for the most part, she's just fighting unranked fighters who are near her skill level. Like, Tyler Santos, of course, is very good, went on to fight for the title. But other than that, like, Luana Carolina isn't that good. So,
no, I mean, poor Jiyeon Kim's got to fight at 125 next week against Jocelyn Edwards.
Exactly.
That's a head-scratcher.
That whole group of fighters is sort of the group of fighters that Molly McCann is headlining right now. And that's great. She has been able to pick up, I don't know, a lot of fame and notoriety for being an unranked fighter in this division. But the thing is, like, fighting is why people care about you in the first place. That's the only reason we talk about this sport is these people's skill sets. And at a certain point, if you're not fighting better fighters, no one's really going to care about what you say outside of the cage. And for Molly McCann, this isn't a negative by any means. It's just, they are going to have to match her up with people who are on the outskirts of the rankings, who are in the rankings in that, 12 to 15 category. And if she is able to get a win over Hannah Goldy, it's kind of wild that that's sort of the difference in this division. You beat someone whose last win was over a fighter who was 500, and now you're fighting somebody in the rankings. Like, in the lightweight division, we'd never hear about that. But for Molly McCann, if she is able to win this fight, I do expect her to take on someone in the rankings next, and someone who is a really difficult matchup for her, because they can't just keep on doing Molly McCann wins and loses a, split decision.
It's the Michael Venom Page way up right now.
Exactly.
And obviously MVP eventually fought some good fighters, although Douglas Lima, my God, the fall has been bad.
But he is really old,
Jason Jackson, brute, and he missed weight. But regardless, for Molly McCann, open -200, -454. It's baked! The line is baked. Hannah Goldy, +350. If you like Goldy.
As baked as Sean O'Malley signing the Piotr Jan fight agreement.
That was bad. 88% going with Molly McCann. I do like Molly McCann in this one, but Yeah, it's time to do something. If you do like, Hannah Goldy, go for it, I guess. The super chat, Malone Hart, was very nice of that again. The Georgian hospitality, the Southern hospitality, and some nice words from Handsome R7. How long till ESPN Plus hires us? You'd think they would have done it all. Maybe TSN, just ring, call it up. Friend of the show, Aaron
We
Bronstein.
could be the new, like, John Ramdeen and Aaron Black.
Aaron Black? Robin
Black, sorry.
Maybe we'll have to see what happens. Maybe we're gonna have to, set the scene. Maybe they'll see us off of Nikita Krylov and Alexander Gustafsson. And what I will tell you is Alexander Gustafsson came in on weight, doesn't look like a bag of milk like he does in that picture anymore. He's cut up. He looks good. So he made the weight 205 and thereabouts. And for Gustafsson, his last fight was at 240 against PFL's own Fabrizio Verdum, former champ. And Gustafsson looked like they dropped him in the middle of the ocean without a paddle and said, just see you later. Have fun with that. Because he didn't look very good in that fight. And Gustafsson hasn't had a meaningful win in a long period of time. And I get it. The John Jones fight, that's a tough one. It's for the title. But then after that, a couple more losses. For Nikita Krylov, his fight IQ, he makes decisions in fights like my dog makes in real life. It's like, Chuck, what are you doing? Like, just stop doing what you're doing and think about it. For Nikita Krylov, he's a good grappler, but he puts himself in tight positions. He's a good striker, but he leaves himself open to be countered.
He's not a good grappler.
He is a good grappler.
But he's had too many submission losses. He's been controlled too much on the ground for us to say he's a good grappler. Nikita Krylov is the fighter I'm talking about when I say, hey, he has a lot of submission wins and a lot of submission losses too. Like, it's fine. I just wouldn't say he is very good.
Is Derek Minner a good grappler?
No, I would say he's a 50-50 grappler.
All right, fair enough. Continue.
Nikita Krylov is the exact same thing, though. Like, if he has the advantage on his opponent, then yes, he will use it. But the problem is, if you have a background in grappling whatsoever, he will not have that advantage over you. Like, Jan Blachowicz is a good wrestler, and I would say just about, like, Jan Blachowicz himself isn't even that good defensively on the ground. And Jan made Nikita Krylov look not very good in the grappling throughout their fight. So that's why I do say he's a good grappler, but he's not very good by any stretch. I think he will have success in the grappling in this fight, so it's almost like my whole point didn't matter. But still, Gustafsson to me isn't a UFC fighter looking to get up into the ranks and fight for a title. Like, he's having these fights, but he fights at heavyweight, fights at light heavyweight. There doesn't really seem to be any clear path for, okay, what is Gus going to do next? If he beats Krylov, I'm sure he's going to stay at 205 pounds, maybe fight a Jamal Hill next. But I would be very sad watching that fight as someone who grew up watching a lot of Alexander Gustafsson performances. So if he could turn back the hands of time, maybe he could go out there and look really good with his own boxing. I just don't think he has the same level of volume that sort of was his Hall of Fame skill to begin with. And if you lose the thing that made you special in the first place, I do have a hard time thinking you're going to be able to beat a guy like Nikita Krylov, who just does a lot.
You know when you tell a story and you go, like my dog Chuck, he makes questionable decisions. Hey, Chuck, what are you doing? And then Mr. Green says, who the F is Chuck? It's short for Sir Charles Barkley. That's the name of my dog. But we have a look at Fight Night Picks, Matt. 59% of the fans going with Krylov to get the win. 41% going with Alexander Gustafsson, the Hall of Famer. He's in the UFC Hall of Fame for his first fight against John Jones. In Canada, no less. If you look at it for Gustafsson, he is the underdog. At the start of the week, he was a plus 150, 55. He's a plus 173 right now. So things have come in on Nikita Krylov, who's a minus 207. I do have Krylov, Dev the Dude saying Gus all day. Dev the Dude, bud. James Lloyd hitting up the super chat. When will you guys be coming back to New England for some local events? James Lloyd, next Saturday, NEF has a big card on the pavilion off the bay at the live concert venue there over by the Downeaster train. What would you call it? Station? That's the word I'm looking for. Right there, James, is where NEF is. I can't wait for it. So A, thank you for the super chat, but B, UFC 277, and it's my birthday. And I'm not a big, it's my birthday. I usually don't tell anybody, but it's the fact that it all culminates on the same day. I'm sticking it close to home. So maybe in the fall I'll be back, but that's just the scoop for that one because we're going to have a live show and everything.
It's 180 degrees in this room, and that's all I can think about right now. I'm not going to lie.
Well, if we open the door, the air conditioner's on out there. So I will say that. But in this fight, we have Krylov to get the win over Gustafsson. You can open that door. Open the door.
We're good.
All right, Matt. Next fight, Paddy Pimblett taking on Jordan Levitt. This is the one where people are really torn on this fight. There are so many people that love the Levitt interviews. They think Levitt's going to get it done. I think if Levitt's going to get it done, Paddy Pimblett's the more creative grappler. Jordan Levitt's the more position over submission. But hey, I can get a submission type of win. And if you look at the guys that Pimblett struggled against, it's been guys like that in the grappling realm. When it comes to striking, it's oil and water. And Paddy Pimblett's the oil that's on the top. The cream will rise to the top. Like Macho Man, where is he? Randy Savage used to say. Macho Man, Randy Savage. Ooh, yeah. So when it comes to this fight, Matt, I do have Paddy Pimblett. Now, obviously, there's a lot of hype with it. He's probably the most talked about fighter this week. For some reason, at like between the hours of 11 and 3 o'clock in the morning on like Thursday night, the video that we had for this one spiked. So I don't know, a bunch of Brits decided to watch it. But I do like Paddy in this fight. But Jordan Levitt's got a good case, and you really can't count him out in this one.
And do you know what I really like this week? I've seen, and I'm not trying to pat us on the back, but we said this at the start of the week. This is a genuinely difficult fight for a prospect in Paddy Pimblett, especially of his level. They normally don't give you another prospect on the rise who's a difficult matchup for you, but I have seen a lot of people be like, hey, this Jordan Levitt guy, like, he does have a really good chance to win. And it has been nice to see, because normally when you have one guy who is a much bigger star than the other, they just sort of discredit the opponent and never really give them anything. But it has been nice to see a lot of people think, hey, Jordan Levitt has a good chance this week.
Like, I don't care about the media day interviews unless you say something stupid like Kyle Nelson, like my striking's better, more powerful than Ilia Topuria. I don't put a lot of stock into the things that are said during fight week. So I really don't care about the guy in Jordan Levitt and what he said for, you know, the build up to this fight. And I don't really care about what Paddy Pimblett said either. I care about the X's and O's of the fight. And for Jordan Levitt, did I love his fight against Trey Ogden? Was it fun to go back and watch? Not necessarily. It was, you know, we're talking 1A, 1B who won. It was a split, and it was very close. But when it does come down to Jordan Levitt striking, yes, I expect him to make gains at Syndicate MMA, but I haven't really seen them yet.
And that's my big problem. Like, okay, Fazeev, when he went to Stanford, got better. Like, his takedown defense is a lot better, I'd say. I'd even say his cardio is a lot better. I don't know if that's a gym-specific thing, but still, you can point and look at different parts of his skill set and think, wow, he has changed or evolved and got better. You're right, for Levitt, I do think that it could still get there. He is still very young in his career, but that's going to be a wrinkle that we have to see if he does want to become a ranked lightweight fighter. And that's the thing for both these guys, and it is a shame to build a star in this division. If you want to build a star at light heavyweight, it's not that hard to do. Get them 3 wins against unranked fighters, get them 2 wins against like Anthony Smith and Volkan Oezdemir, and next thing you know, you're in a title shot. That was very disrespectful to break it down like that, but you get the idea. At lightweight, you are expected to lose on your way up. I know that's a wild thing to say, but you look at the rankings in the lightweight division. Dustin Poirier might not even be in the title picture anymore. That's how good this division's got. And he was like a top 15 pound for pound fighter like a year and a half ago. That's how good these fighters are. So for Pimblett, I do expect him to take a couple L's on his way up through the ranks. I just don't think he's going to take his first one tonight against Levitt. And I would love to see Paddy get matched up with like a Damir Ismagulov next. But the problem is, it's not really a guy you can sell the fight with on the other end of that. And stylistically, I think it'd be something we'd all enjoy. It's just, I don't know how they're going to match him up. Because I feel like you do have to give him someone with a personality so there can be a back
and they got that this week in Jordan Levitt. I just have one comment I got to really push back against. Alex Clark saying UFC won't let Paddy lose in London. Cage Warriors let him lose at home in Liverpool against Soren Bach for a title. So it kind of is, you know, a tricky argument if you want to go that way. 85% of the fans at Fight Night Picks in the Instagram story have Pimblett to get the win. And if you have a look at the odds, Pimblett open to -400, -266. So the gamblers have respected Jordan Levitt this week. And yeah, MPTV saying, my guys need a ceiling fan.
Oh my goodness.
MPTV, if you had a ceiling fan in a room where you have a microphone, it's going to create noise. So you can't do that. Matt could really just open the door.
I just didn't want other noise coming in.
Just open the door. And you'd be able to cool it. And there we go. Now we're going to get some cool air coming in.
I was not joking when I said that either. That was like a threshold I've never got to in this room. I thought I was going to pass out.
Oh, it's very nice now. But yeah, the old heat wave. You think that climate change is fake? You're an idiot.
Come to the Northeast.
Yeah, don't watch Fight Night Picks because we'll have some mean things to say. But Matt, Jack Romance is taking on Chris Curtis.
Favorite fight in the whole card.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Chris Curtis has been sliding into the, I was going to say the DMs, but do they have DMs on Tinder?
Wait, does your wife need to worry about what you and Chris Curtis are doing?
No, but Chris Curtis does watch the show. He's probably out there right now watching this as we speak. But when I do look at this one, Matt, 0-0 Fisherman, y'all East fans? I hope no, we're Canadians fans. Yuri Slavkovsky, let's go. I'm going to move our old wall of sound, or at least Matt could, so it's in the door frame, so we don't have a little bit of, there we go. That helped it a lot.
Way better.
There's a hallway right there. We had a little bit of an echo. But when it does come down to this fight match, Jack Hermansson, Chris Curtis, it's my favorite fight on the card too. Like, it's probably the one that I'm most heavily invested in. I love the main event. I've been on the Tom Aspinall hype train the whole length of it. Apparently, except for this weekend. Oh, but when it does come down to this one, you love a good guy getting a good shot like Chris Curtis,
100%.
who's outside of the rankings, taking on a top 10 guy on short notice, replacing Darren Till. When you look at it for Chris Curtis, I mean, wow, what a great shot. Gordon's saying no air conditioning. No, there is, but not in this room, not in this office that we're in that's painted black so that there's no reverb of the light. But when it does come down to this one, Matt, great opportunity for both guys. For Curtis, he did look very good against Adolfo Vieira his last time out. Now Chuck's watching the show from outside the door.
We have a live audience.
Yeah, Puppy Chuck is joining in the show. But when it comes down to this fight, Matt, if we break down the X's and O's, I think both guys good shot this weekend.
Without a doubt. It's just weird for Jack Hermansson because it was always weird to me when Robbie Lawler was like the 11th ranked fighter at welterweight after he was champion. It's always weird to see a champion have their post-championship career because they'll still be a good fighter. It's the analogy I use a lot where it's you were an MVP, then you were an All-NBA, and now you're an All-Star. Nothing wrong with that. You're still better than most other guys. You're just not what you once were, and I think that's where Jack Hermansson finds himself.
We got the super chat out there. Love you guys from watching since you were small. Since we were small, yikes. Thank you for all the research that you do and how fun you are. Thank you for the super chat and the kind words. Like, it really does mean a lot.
It's very nice.
It's been a wild evolution of the channel, but I see it over there in the comment section, Matt, kind of mentioned Danny Mora saying, dude already prepared for this guy in his last camp. Chris Curtis got ready for a grappler and Adolfo Vieira. They had a fun 2 rounds, and the third round was a slobber knocker of a fight. And obviously, you had Chris Curtis defending all 20 takedowns. By the end of it, it was something.
That's my big X factor. A lot of people are like, oh, Chris Curtis didn't look good cardio-wise in his last fight. I disagree completely, and hear me out. He was way smaller than Adolfo Vieira. There's no argument to that whatsoever. If you have a much bigger person than yourself shooting 20 takedowns on you, you're going to get tired defending them. Jack Hermansson's a small middleweight.
Damari Sims hitting up the super chat. Good to see you guys back in the studio. And Dev the Dude, what a card we have today. LFG. That's 100%. And obviously, Matt Timothy's mentioning, did you see him beating a 200-0 Street Fighter?
I did. He body kicked him one time.
Yeah, that guy's not going to be the future Kimbo Slice. I think his MMA career was done in the gym that day.
Just like, I would look at Chris Curtis and be like, that's the MMA fighter I'm going to try to fight as a street fighter. Anyways, but that's my problem. For Hermansson, he just isn't what he used to be. And I really do think Chris Curtis, the fact that he has had camps previous to this that have gotten him ready for this fight is really going to help him out. And Hermansson, like I was saying before, I forgot what I was saying. He's a small middleweight. That is the truth. Like, go back and watch his wrestling match against Hamzat. Hamzat is way bigger than Jack Hermansson. It's kind of surprising, honestly, to think that Hamzat can get down to 170. But my point is, Chris Curtis got tired because he was defending a lot of volume takedowns from a guy who probably outweighed him by like 30 pounds. Well, now he's going to be about the same size as the guy who he's fighting, so I don't think that those takedown attempts are going to sap his energy as much as Adolfo's were able to do, even though I do believe Jack Hermansson is a better fighter than Adolfo Vieira. I just think that is a big enough X factor to sort of shift the tides of their cardio, because Chris Curtis, again, was on the receiving end of 20 takedowns, even though he never went down. I think Hermansson will go for, 10, 11, maybe 12, but at a certain point, Hermansson doesn't really like getting hit, and I do think that if he does get hit by that one big shot, he'll start fighting in a much more tentative manner, and that'll leave the door open for Chris Curtis to win.
Todd hitting up the super chat. You guys hug when you see each other, just pound fit? None of them. Never.
None.
Open a window for Todd, if I open that window, I'm letting in like a monsoon. You don't understand. If you've never been to the northeast of the United States or Canada, like, our humidity, we're talking like 97, 98% humidity. It said today on the radio, feels like 39 degrees Celsius. Do you know how hot that is?
Very.
When you're out there and you're flying in your private jet for 13 minutes, like the Jenners, like, you're creating this. This is you.
I didn't know this was going to start, wow.
You want to really get me mad. You want to get me fired up.
I get mad about stuff, too. It has nothing to do with MMA, though.
It's climate change.
So do you have a Jack Hermansson or Chris Curtis?
I have Jack Hermansson for the reasons that I stated at the start of the week. Again, when it does come down to this one, obviously, I didn't pick Chris Curtis to win his first 2 fights in the UFC. I thought Phil Haas had the advantage in the grappling. When it came down to the striking, I thought they were about even. Phil Haas, yikes. And then when it came to his next fight against Brendan Allen, I thought, well, geez, Brendan Allen's a hell of a grappler. Brendan Allen just got on the side of him, jumped on his back, and then still wasn't able to get it done. I do think Jack Hermansson is of that ilk. When we talk about a grappler, we obviously haven't seen it, though, in a meaningful amount of time, and that's your point for going with Chris Curtis. We haven't seen the fight like he had against Jacare, where he was lights out. We haven't seen the fight like...
He hasn't been able to fight a 42-year-old in years, so...
Hear me out. We haven't seen the fight like we saw against Kelvin Gastelum. I think this is a good opportunity for Jack Hermansson as a slight underdog to get a win against Chris Curtis, which is where he's at right now, but obviously... Fan support, a lot of people have Curtis. 67% of the fans at Fight Night Picks have Curtis. But I think this is going to be a heck of a fight. And I really, like, we started this and said, this is my favorite fight, and here's why. I really do like this fight. I'm glad that you do too.
It's going to be an awesome one. Hopefully you guys enjoy it too.
It should be a lot of fun. We almost have 1,000 people tuning into the stream today, so that's wild. The super chat's been wild. The channel's been blowing up, so that's been a lot of fun because... we spend a lot of time on these videos, believe it or not. So it should be a lot of fun. UFC 277 next weekend. Nunes Pena 2. Moreno Kai Kara France number 2. There's a couple of debuting fighters on the undercard, which is a lot of fun. So I think it's going to be a good one. The prelims are so-so. The main card's pretty good. So I am looking forward to that one.
It should be a really fun fight card, and especially the fact that we have the greatest women's fighter of all time coming back to try to reclaim her throne. It's a pretty good storyline, too.
It should be a lot of fun. So, Matt, we'll move into the main event of the evening. Curtis Blaydes, Tom Aspinall. A lot of people have said some nasty, mean things about us on this fight. And listen, let the boo birds rein in. I mean, Macho Man Randy Savage, like, he's pretty much got his hand ready for the boo birds on the old 80s style thing that I picked up at the Sussex Flea Market years ago as just something to have in the studio. But when I do look at this fight, Matt, I think this is going to be a lot of fun. I mean, for Curtis Blaydes, we know the UFC put a short video out there. It's all the takedowns Curtis Blaydes has had in his UFC career. Go watch it. 14 of them are against Alexander Volkov. Tom Aspinall didn't need 14 to finish Alexander Volkov. That's neither here nor there. We know how good Tom Aspinall's boxing has been in the UFC. The whole length of it, we've been saying, hey, this is a guy that spent time... he got his black belt at a very young age, but teaching jiu-jitsu at the gym, and people were like, no, guys, you don't know him. Like, he's just a boxer. Like, really?
He's got more.
You got to see how good he was there. Obviously, his striking was great against Andrei Arlovsky, and then he was able to go in and bam, lights out, finish that fight on the map. But I think this is going to be such a fun fight. I think he's got a great opportunity here to really springboard into title contention and lap Cyril Gane and lap Tai Tuivasa, who have a fight coming up. But Curtis Blaydes, man, like, this guy's obviously taken a level up in his boxing, spent time in Houston in this camp to kind of get ready for the wrinkles of Tom Aspinall. Both these guys, good opportunity. I think it's a hell of a fight.
It is a really fun fight. This is my weird theory about this fight. If Curtis Blaydes loses, he'll be the Bellator heavyweight champion in 8 months. 6 months.
He's going to
the
beat
second
Ryan
he
Bader.
signed, destroy them. It won't even be close. This is the Jan Blachowicz versus Corey Anderson fight of this year because you have Curtis Blaydes, a guy who, let's be honest, isn't in very good faith with the company, even though he does get a lot of these main events. He's never really gotten the marquee shot that he was always hoping for. Even his second fight against Francis was like in China at 8 a.m. Like, there's always been an oh, by the way with Curtis Blaydes, and he's never really gotten a fair shake if we're just calling it what it is. Now, this fight against Tom Aspinall, it's another one. He has to go to that guy's home country. He has to go to his hometown. Fight in front of 20,000 people who probably hate him just because he's fighting a guy who's from there. But let's call it what it is. Like, Curtis Blaydes is one of those dominant wrestlers we have in MMA. Not just the heavyweight division. In MMA alone, it's only him and Cain Velasquez are at the top of pretty much every single grappling category in this division. And it's gotten to the point where Curtis Blaydes, if he is able to stay on this kind of a trajectory, will get numbers like Merab Dvalishvili has down at bantamweight. Like, Merab for takedown attempts and completions at bantamweight is so much higher than anybody else. It looks like Wilt Chamberlain numbers. Curtis Blaydes is getting into that category right now at the heavyweight division. But my theory is, if he loses to Tom Aspinall, okay, so you've lost to the champion you're not going to get another shot at. You've lost to Derek Lewis, who didn't look good his last time out, so that almost knocks you another rung down.
He's going to lose to Sergey Pavlovich next week. Ugh.
I'll save my prediction for next week. And then you would then lose to Tom Aspinall. So by this point, he would have lost to a lot of the top guys in the UFC. You can look over to Bellator, look at a former light heavyweight who is their heavyweight champion, who, let's be honest, went over to Bellator to get the title for a reason. So I think Curtis Blaydes, if he did go over there, would absolutely destroy. But I think he's going to win this fight against Tom Aspinall. I think his wrestling is going to be so dominant that Aspinall will not have an answer for it.
We have to shout out Takima. Takima, you get to shout out the Mummy Cats. If you want great tunes out there, check out the Mummy Cats. We're doing Dana White's Contender Series breakdowns this week, boys. Well, the promise was if we got over 30,000 subscribers, we do them. And if there's a will, there's a way. So we'll see how the way will go with Dana White's Contender Series. But, Matt, when it does come down to this fight, Tom Aspinall, better boxing, for sure. I mean, obviously Curtis Blaydes had to level up. Craig is going to Braveheart it all the way to a title shot. Yeah, he might. That'd be cool. That if
you must read all those thinking they're talking to you and then have to go to Paul.
All week.
Okay,
all week everybody's been saying Craig because they normally say it that way, and then some people that get us mixed up, and I don't know. They used to go left guy, right guy, but Matt, again, when it does come down to this one, obviously if Derek Lewis can do it, Tom Aspinall can do it, and again, Tom Aspinall lost to Stuart Austin years ago by submission. He's a guy that gets it done inside the first 3 rounds, inside the first 2 rounds. Can Blaydes take him to the deep waters? 68% of the fans at Fight Night Picks have Aspinall to get the win. He's a slight favorite. When we made the video, he was about the Friday, Saturday, Monday. Minus 120, he's minus 147. Blaydes at a plus 123. I like him based on the fact that, he's the underdog in this matchup, but I've hyped up Tom Aspinall the entire length of it, and a lot of people, are just upset that I'm not taking Tom Aspinall. If I get it wrong, I get it wrong. You just got to take it, water off a duck's back and take it into the next week. But
I'm not going to get it wrong. Curtis Blaydes is going to win. Confidence, Craig.
Oh, boy. Key. But I do have Curtis Blaydes in this fight. So, Matt, I'm going to minimize all the other fights so we can go back down through them. But if you could tell a story about this week or maybe something that you're looking forward to UFC 277.
Oh, I can tell stories about this week. I work at the busiest restaurant in the city of Fredericton, and it was as busy as you could imagine it would be. And here's the thing. I love working at restaurants. It's really fun. It's like a team vibe. Everyone gets along. But you know what's not fun? When it's 38 degrees outside and then there's ovens and stuff inside. It makes for a very long work week.
I was in a hotel lobby this week at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I looked at the little thing out by the door, and it said they set it at 20. But it was 31.5 degrees in that hotel lobby, and everybody was sweating their bag off. So if you're living in Canada or the Northeast, or if you're in the what would it be, the west of Europe, you're having a bad time unless you have a wicked AC unit. So, Matt, we'll go through.
I broke into our parents' house for the pool about a week ago.
Timothy's saying y'all crazy for picking Blaydes. Whatever.
I've been told that a lot this week, and hey, could be wrong, but this is one of the few times that I don't think that the Uber prospect is going to get past the gatekeeper. Normally, I do pick the Uber prospect.
Peter Shea saying Fahrenheit, please. I don't operate in Fahrenheit, and I never will. Claudio Silva's taking on Nicolas Dalby. I have Nicolas Dalby, but not a ton of confidence in this one. Again, Silva's looked slow in his last 2. Dalby's a poor grappler.
I agree with all that. I have Dalby ever so slightly just because he's a little bit more well-rounded.
All right, Matt. Our next fight, we have Mandy Bohm. You got to pronounce the O umlaut that I couldn't get in this text format. I have Mandy Bohm to beat Victoria Leonardo, but again, Leonardo has decent pressure, good boxing combinations. Mandy Bohm does not react well to pressure, does not have any head movement, does not keep her hands high, so she very well could lose this fight.
Yeah, I've got Mandy Bohm, but ever so slightly.
All right, next fight, Jai Herbert taking on Kyle Nelson. Kyle Nelson coming up, and wait, don't have him to win the fight. Can't pick the Canadian. I have Jai Herbert out of Wolverhampton.
The Canadian MMA scene used to be really vibrant and rich, but now it has kind of faltered. So it'd be nice to see Kyle Nelson be able to get a win, but I do expect Jai Herbert to get the dub.
Did our guy Charles Jourdain beat Shane Burgos last weekend?
I didn't think he did.
You didn't think he did? I know that's a very contentious one there with the MMA fans.
Close fight, though. Again, I don't get caught up. Well, I know we disagree on this. I don't judge fights when I watch them. I can't stress this enough. I think it's a waste of time because my opinion doesn't mean anything in the whole grand scheme of things. And I only care about what they do stylistically. The result of the fight does not change my opinion on it.
Michael O'Rourke saying, can we hit 10 dislikes, lads? Michael O'Rourke, you're a donkey. Mohamed Mokaev taking on Charles Johnson. I do have Mokaev in this fight. Obviously, there's a lot of hype. Sometimes people love to fade the hype and go with the underdog. I think he's going to get the win this weekend, and it's a good opportunity for him. Charles Johnson's not a big name, but he's taking on a decent level competition. He's a reigning, defending LFA champ. You had that clip in there, the Dana White clip from Toronto, Canada. Can't do a world tour without going to Canada, baby! But I do like Mokaev here. I think he's of that ilk with his grappling.
I agree. I really do think he's going to be one of the top-tier prospects in this division, and I expect him to be in the rankings sooner rather than later.
Briley Murphy, I don't know why it hit you, but we're going to show you because you're asking for the likes. It'd be nice to get the likes, but I'll never ask. Makwan Amirkhani, JSP. Odd fight. I like Pearce with his pressure. I hate his cardio. I think he's getting better with his striking, but Mokaev could definitely go out there and cinch up a submission. It's more of a fade on Amirkhani than anything, but I don't really see a high ceiling for either of these guys, unfortunately.
I can't believe we talked about this fight for about 40 minutes. I have JSP. It's just Makwan Amirkhani isn't the guy that a lot of people think he is. The striking rate's awful. He likes to do that one big explosion, then just kind of wait around and go for a lot of panic takedowns. I like JSP in this matchup, especially on the feet.
We'll move on to our next fight, Matt. Nathaniel Wood, Charles Rosa. Rosa, 850 tuning in. And a howdy and a how do you do. It's much appreciated. I have Nathaniel Wood in here based on the boxing combinations, the takedown defense, the complete package. It would surprise me if Charles Rosa won.
Same. I think Nathaniel Wood's going to win this, and probably by stoppage.
All right, Matt. Our next fight, we have Marc Diakiese, Damir Hadzovic. Damir Hadzovic got them hands. That's it.
And had to get him down, Skip. Put them tangs on him first. I have
Knock
Marc
him down.
Diakiese.
Yeah, I have Diakiese as well. So Diakiese in that one. Jones, Klein. I have Jones. I think it's going to be a fun fight for the time being. But I have Mason Jones on short notice, flying across the world. I'm still picking him.
Stylistically, it's Mason Jones without a doubt in my mind, but the problem is there is a lot of static surrounding this fight. There is the potential knee injury. There is jet lag, which is very real. So for Mason Jones, there are a couple red flags, but just stylistically, he should be able to win this fight.
Michael O'Rourke wants the dislikes because we didn't pick Tom Aspinall. Hey, Michael, I made thousands of these videos, pal. Bound to get some of them wrong. Paul Craig taking on Volkan Oezdemir. Maybe this will be the fight that I get wrong.
Well, you got the last Paul Craig one wrong.
I have Volkan Oezdemir to get the win in this one, and you have Paul Craig. And man, I'm amped for this one.
It's gonna be a really fun fight.
Hermanson Curtis and Paul Craig, Volkan Oezdemir. Either way you slice it, they're gonna be fun.
This is the only thing though. Hermanson, Chris Curtis, I think could be a fun fight no matter who wins. Paul Craig's going to out-grapple Volkan Oezdemir and immediately destroy him on the mat, or Volkan Oezdemir is going to go out there and hit him with a big flurry and knock him out. I don't really think we'll see sort of the competitiveness in this one, although I do agree it's very volatile and could go either way.
What is it? LBK saying that I have terrible striking. You see how that happens, Matt? Craig has terrible striking. And then finally, somebody actually saying, see you number 13, Paul Craig by sub. 0-0 Fisherman bet on me. Matt, Molly McCann's taking on Hannah Goldy. I have Molly McCann to get the win. But you gotta fight somebody like in the rankings next.
100%. I do have Molly McCann in this matchup, though.
Igor Ramos keeps asking about Julio Cesar Neves. Honestly, I don't know Julio Cesar Neves, but I will look him up, Igor, after this one.
The only Julio Cesars I know is Chavez Jr. and Sr.
Senior. He's really looking forward to Tank Davis fighting Ryan Garcia. I think Tank Davis going to knock out Ryan Garcia. Nikita Krylov's taking on Alexander Gustafsson. I have Nikita Krylov in this one.
So do I, but it is a fun fight. Just like fight fans, if you're a really big fight fan, you'll like this one. Nikita Krylov is inconsistent as all get out, but Gustafsson, we don't really know what stage of his career he's at. So I do have Nikita, but it should be a fun fight.
This was the fight where I threw out the Billy Strings reference, and a lot of people were very receptive to that. So if you want to throw down some music recommendations, do that in the chat, because I'm always up for some new tunes. Patty Pimblett's taking on Jordan Levitt. I think it's going to be a fun fight as well. I have Patty Pimblett to get the win, just based on the striking. But again, I am eager to see Levitt. Very good once he gets the takedown, gets top position at holding you down. And Patty Pimblett's been held down in some of his previous fights as well. He's also been rocked on the feet, but I don't think Jordan Levitt's the guy to do that in the UFC. So I like Pimblett in this fight. Should be fun.
I have Patty Pimblett.
All right, Patty Pimblett. We have Jack Hermanson, Chris Curtis. We're on opposite ends on this one. I have Hermanson, you have Curtis. But again, you're not going to want to miss this fight.
Oh, yeah, this is the fight of the night without a doubt. Like, if you are sitting down watching this fight, you've made a good decision with your Saturday.
Chad, the UFC dad, you made a good decision saying morning, gents. And the last fight of the night, boo, pick the fighter we want you to pick. I've got Curtis Blaydes to get the win, and so do you. But
here's the thing, though. I had people in my DMs being like, hey, I like the Curtis Blaydes pick.
Yeah, there's been a few of them.
I had two people just specifically be like, I respect the pick. I know a lot of people aren't going to like it. Again, for Blaydes, he's just a more proven commodity at this point, especially against the higher class of fighters in this division. I really do like what Tom Aspinall's been able to show up until this point, but other than the Volkov win, he doesn't really have a huge marquee name on his resume. Now, of course, if he's able to beat Curtis Blaydes, that changes all that very fast. But this is the weird thing. I feel like it's almost been given to Tom Aspinall, like, hey, you're getting the title shot if you win this fight. But there's about 3 guys who all have an equal claim to the next title shot. So at a certain point, I do think him and Tai Tuivasa or Cyril Gane are going to have to get in there before they do get that next fight against Francis. I don't think it's as easy as, oh, Tom Aspinall beats Curtis Blaydes, he fights Francis next. I do think there's just going to be another fight in between.
Matt, in the super chat there, Jacob saying, so we like the Bohm fight to go the distance. I don't like it at all. Mandy Bohm got dropped twice in her last fight against Ariane Lipski and almost dropped in the first round. Victoria Leonardo's had a broken arm for what seems like months and months and months. And obviously it's healed and obviously she's fighting. Just don't do it. Just watch the fight. Like, just watch it. Have pop and popcorn. Don't get so invested in unranked women's flyweights on a Saturday morning. How about that?
Yeah, just
all right, Matt.
Tell your family you love them. Go see some friends. Get a good meal. Like, there's
Stay
other
out-
things to do.
Stay out of the heat and invest in an AC. How about that? Matt, it is a big time weekend of fights. We do appreciate everybody for tuning in. It's the first live show we've had in like 2 weeks. I'm home this week and next, so we have UFC 277 next week. I'll cue that one up so people get to see that. And I'm
Try
gonna
not to pass out from the
there.
heat.
I'm gonna turn down the volume on it, but you folks can see that. Yeah, that one is the one next weekend. Couple of big rematches. Pena Nunes too. We also have Moreno, Kai Kara France for interim flyweight gold, which seems like a silly belt to just throw out there. But they're going to rematch, and I think that's a fun one, obviously, because their first fight was very contentious and very close. So this one should be good, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm really eager to talk about those fights coming up this week.
Yeah, really fun pay-per-view. Cannot wait to break it down. Should be a good card.
Matt, we're going to try and beat the heat. Hopefully you folks do as well. Enjoy UFC London. Thanks, everybody, so much for tuning in. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, and as we always say, let's get into it. Thanks for the good show, everybody.